It's finally here, Danielle. We've been waiting so long. Final Fantasy 15.
It's here, and it's 15.
It's 15. We've been waiting about 15 years.
Yeah, forever.
Give or take.
15 years and
so
forever.
This was originally Final Fantasy Versus 13. Originally had a different director. It's now Final Fantasy 15, and this is the demo version called Episode Duscae.
Duscae.
Something in Latin.
something fancy.
Just came out with the Final Fantasy Type 0, which I showed you the other day.
Yes, which looked
pretty cool.
This is pretty cool. So right here we're in a combat sequence, and you were driving most of this. So
yes.
Do you want to tell me how it feels to fight in this game?
It's interesting because we're in a demo, and obviously, it's still early to some degree. The combat feels very simple so far. It's very button mashy. You actually just hold down square, and your character auto attacks, and then you can press triangle to do like some special moves. You can hold down a button to dodge. But it just dodges automatically when enemies attack. You're not controlling that dodge.
Yeah, like that warp effect. And here, this is how you level up. You make camp and you eat delicious food.
Yeah, so the experience points you're gathering, you don't get them applied to your characters immediately. They get applied when you camp at the end of the day, sort of like old Elder Scrolls games. So you're going to see here, I'll get some experience points and level up a bunch right now. And then in addition to that, when you make camp at the end of the day, you're eating...
delicious food.
Yeah,
always.
and depending on what you eat, you get different buffs. So the gameplay here, what's going on in this demo is these four guys are on a road trip. Their car is broken down, and in order to fix it, they need a bunch of money, and they have none. So they decided they're going to hunt this behemoth that there is an active bounty on. So they're tracking him right now, and basically we're sneaking into his lair.
Yeah, it's really kind of cool, and you'll see in a second what the behemoth looks like, and it
setup
has one eye.
Yeah, like the setup for this is awesome. They treat this as like a serious,
there he is,
terrifying boss creature.
Deadeye.
Yeah, the behemoth is named Deadeye, and as we're about to get told here,
he has cool hair.
Yeah,
and one eye.
He's called Deadeye because literally one of his eyes is dead. So. He cannot see us because we're on the bad side.
Yep, it's kind of great. Like it also, I just have to say, the hair in this game in general, the hairstyles, the fashion, everything about it is really over the top and really wonderful.
Well, there's a weird and interesting like clashing of fashion styles going on that we'll see a little bit later, because you see these are pretty traditional Final Fantasy characters. These guys here wearing fancy
all black goth
fancy
get-ups.
Final Fantasy character clothing, but then a lot of the other regular NPCs you see around are just wearing regular clothing, like stuff that you or I would wear.
Yeah, so this takes place in a bizarre fantasy universe that's sort of a mashup of like, it seems like a normal Final Fantasy game and like Americana.
Yeah,
like,
the way I saw somebody
America.
describe it on Twitter that I liked is sort of smashing together of fantasy and the mundane.
Which is nice.
It's cool.
Yeah.
It feels very different. The other thing this game has going on, of course, is it's a little bit more open world than other Final Fantasy games have been. But in addition to that, you get to sections like this where obviously it's a little more linear, a little more set piece, and it's commendable, I think, that from what we've seen so far in this very limited demo, that the game can mix those two things in such a seamless way, where we're going from the open world into these sections that are clearly a lot more...
a little cinematic.
Yeah,
it almost feels
cinematic.
a little bit like it's from a Naughty Dog game. Like
yeah.
That little section right there was very like Last of Us, and more combat.
And in general, I think we're seeing like, and we'll go back into combat here. I think in general we're seeing this Final Fantasy is a lot more actiony than some of the previous ones.
What I really like about the combat so far, not just that it seems fast, but I really like your little warp move. So you're basically warping around. You're throwing your weapon to warp through, like into and through enemies, basically,
yes.
Which is really cool, and I think it keeps things really fast-paced.
Yeah, it means that if you are, in sort of action game standards, if you finish off one enemy and the next one's far away, you close that distance immediately,
right there.
essentially.
Yeah.
You tap one button and you're able to close that distance.
And you're fighting these like weird dragon dog looking things.
Yeah.
Like I really love the character designs and the enemy designs so far.
What I'm wondering about with the combat, and obviously it's weird going into a demo for an RPG, because you can't really we're jumping into the middle of this game. Normally at this point in the game, we'd have hours of tutorials where we figured everything out. So I'm kind of kind of curious about the depth of the combat. Like, what is the combat long term? What is the strategies we'll be using? Like, obviously, I'm not just going to be holding square on everything in the game.
Yeah, most likely.
I would assume, but I don't know what the actual combat strategies will be in the full game, and what my options will be, and how I'll figure out how to tackle different enemies.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how that's going to happen. And we obviously have no idea what the release date is yet on this game either. This seems pretty early still, so...
This seems very early. You can see it's kind of framey. It's not running super smooth. And yeah, it feels like I would be surprised if this game makes it this year still. It still feels like something where I would guess early 2016 at the absolute earliest.
Yeah, that makes sense. That sounds about right.
Which, we've already waited this long for this thing.
Yeah,
so
we've waited forever.
Take their time. At least now we know that it is a thing. It's a real playable thing. We have played it. It exists. It's not like that's the biggest thing about this demo for me. And I think that's why it was important to them to get it out. To let people know, like, no, I know you've been waiting forever for this game, and it's gone through title changes and everything, but it is a legit... It's real.
It's real, and this is a substantial demo, too. Yeah. Several hours long. And here's a sequence where this is basically stealth. Like, we went from action game to stealth kind of sequence here.
Again, tracking the behemoth, we are literally now following him back to basically his
secret
home.
lair.
Yeah, his lair. And we don't want to be seen yet because we haven't come up with a plan for how we're going to actually defeat this thing. So we're literally kind of going rock to rock, taking cover behind the rocks, and trying not to get caught.
And you have to stay on his bad side too, a little bit here,
yeah.
Or else you have to stay very far back, or else he'll see you, or he'll sense you, or smell you, whatever he's doing.
And this is like that kind of stealth situation where it's like if you get caught, you fail. But also, it seems fairly forgiving, and it's one thing I was saying I really like about this section is that it's not just a gameplay mechanic. There's literally, the fog is so thick that if he gets too far away, you cannot see him. It's not just he gets so far away and he gets to some random number of meters away and the game fails you. It's when he is out of your sight, when you can no longer actually see him in the game.
That's what's Sayonara for you.
Yeah, and I thought that's a cool thing that they did.
Yeah, so far, I mean, this demo is just mixing things really nicely, and I think that was probably the thing I think is the coolest about this so far.
It's a lot of different stuff. It feels like there's a lot of variety. And that's something that, this is the same director as Type 0. So when I showed you Type 0 the other day, that's something that he did very well in that game as well. There's a lot of variety.
A lot of strategy going on in that game. And then
what we're doing here is we've come to the Behemoth's lair, and one of our buddies is basically telling us the plan for how we're going to take this thing down. And I'm just going to not explain it and let you guys watch it play out because it's pretty rad.
It is cool, yeah.
But again, this shows this kind of interesting thing that Final Fantasy Final Fantasy games have toyed with before, but I don't think they've ever pulled off quite to this level, which is the boss, it really is more of like a set piece.
Oh, absolutely.
And there is like a more traditional, regular, just boss battle as well, but first we get to do something really cool and interesting here. So that's what it's showing off here, the warp. You can actually warp up to these areas.
I love he just hangs on his sword. He's like, yep, I'm just hanging out. It's
that can let you put some distance between you and large groups of enemies if you need to, and let you take a breather when you're fighting. You can actually build up your... you can build up your MP, regain your MP and HP.
Which is pretty cool. So you gotta get out of the way. You bait him, basically, get out of the way, and then the plan is pretty amazing.
This guy jumps out from his blind side. This guy shoots a thing that blows up on him.
And sets him on fire.
And the cool thing is, this is all in engine. This isn't switching to CG, so it just seamlessly switches back to you being in control and having to choose to jump over to him. Which is that's one of the coolest and most impressive things, I think, is everything here is seamless. It goes in and out of these cutscenes without any sort of pause.
Yeah, it's pretty great. It goes in and out of genres, in and out of cutscenes. It's going all over the place, but it feels coherent though.
It's trying some really ambitious things, and man, that's what Final Fantasy should be doing, right? It should be trying ambitious things.
It should be a bombastic kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we didn't kill him. The plan totally didn't work. So now we're going to be seeing... so the behemoth is like, now he's mad. Now he's pissed off. And so it's time to get serious about fighting him. Which, doesn't go so well at first, but...
Oh, what's happening here?
But something special happens.
This is actually, we skipped ahead a little bit.
A little, yeah, because
there's a longer...
There's plenty of fighting involved.
Yeah.
But
and we actually had to go and do a side quest to get this, But
once you get this amazing ability to sort of resurrect yourself, basically, you can use a summons, and here we go.
This is
a giant wizard pops up.
It's the best.
Giant wizard man.
So people who've played Final Fantasy know this is Ramu, the summon. He is I don't know if I'm saying that right, but he is a lightning god who is a summon in many Final Fantasy games. Oh my god, this is by far his coolest form ever.
The behemoth.
Look at that.
This is incredible.
It's so good.
This is the most Final Fantasy moment in this entire demo, I feel like.
I love it.
And here it is.
I love it, and that just kills him.
And that was the end of that the behemoth. I love that your buddy is just clapping. He just has his fancy gloves and he's just clapping for you. He's so proud. Oh, such a great moment. And then we go from, again, sort of the fantasy world, running around in the fields, killing monsters, and now here there's a gas station. It's like, oh, we're in Kansas, on the side of the road, basically.
And it's the cars are just like regular. There's a regular truck. There's a regular car. And all these people you're seeing are wearing jeans,
normal clothes,
shirts, like regular shirts.
We're just exploring this gas station, and we're all like goth kids at the mall, basically. Yeah. It's just kind of incredible how it mixes up.
Like, when we leave, like, the regulars here are just like, what are these guys?
Where are they from?
These creeps.
Where are these kids? Where are these weird kids? And actually, the story has to do with Noctis here, the protagonist, is actually a prince. And he's hanging out with his buddies who are, like, more experienced and know what they're doing in terms of hunting and going on road trips and being regular dudes, apparently. Well, regular dudes, in quotes, in this universe.
I think there's some element of, obviously this is a little bit, because it's a demo, it's a little in medias res. There's some element of, like, these people are here to protect him, too.
Yes.
So we've shown all the good stuff, and we have a lot of praise for this game. Here's one thing that's kind of
a bit of a problem.
Gross. So this is Cid.
It's the first female Cid in a Final Fantasy game, and apparently they didn't render her clothes yet.
So that's a mistake. Yeah. Maybe they need to fix that with the final version.
I mean, okay, we certainly have Abman here, but, like, Abman is clothed. Like, okay, we have a little bit of female gaze going on, but, like, okay, seriously? Like, that's her... That is not what a mechanic wears. You don't want to get hot engine oil on your sensitive parts.
Well, maybe you do. I mean,
if that's what you're into, that's cool, but maybe not at work.
So the gross thing about this is it's not just how she's dressed and stuff, but also, like, you can kind of see the game's camera kind of ogles her, and it's really, it's disappointing. Also, like, again, coming from the guy who did Final Fantasy Type 0, which had basically an even split between men and women playable characters, and the women characters weren't really sexualized in any way.
Yeah, and they're badasses.
And Cid, to her credit, she's like a badass mechanic here, so that's cool. But
maybe give her clothes.
Maybe
make the camera respect her a tiny bit. Basically.
So that's real crappy, and also something that I hope maybe they work on a little bit. Whether that means, like, redoing her character model or like maybe just giving her more personality.
Just give her a coverall.
Her personality here too is very, like, flirty and, like,
it's just very subservient, basically.
Playing to the boys.
They could actually take a little cue from the female character in Full Throttle.
Sure.
She's a really cool badass mechanic who's not, just grossly there to be sexualized.
So here we are selling the thing that shows that we killed the behemoth. So we get our bounty and then can go and pay Cid for fixing our car and take off. But that's kind of it. This is Final Fantasy 15. Demo ends with a little bit of concept art, but nothing super interesting. But
this is just more Cid being flamboyant here. Yeah.
But I'm very this one problematic thing aside, I'm very excited to to see more of this game now, and I think this demo is pretty rad. And if they're able to continue delivering on the quality of this across, a 40 or 50 hour game, I'm into it.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems to mix a lot of things pretty cool, and I really like the sort of road trip motif and the character design and all that other good stuff.
Absolutely.
So hopefully they give Sid clothes, and awesome. Final Fantasy 15, I'm souped.